Forsaken, a 1v8 asymmetrical horror game where you and your team have to work together, putting your lives on the line in order to survive the chosen killer. You've got a bunch of characters to choose, some with self-defense mechanisms, chance, two-time, guest, shedletskis, sentinels with ways to escape and stun the killer efficiently when they're in a chase. And then you've got supports, Dusakar, Builderman, Elliots, making it practically impossible for the killer to continue a chase against someone else without losing a devastating amount of distance. And then you have the outcasts, the dogshit survivor 007 N7, never use N7, and last, but usually considered least, you've got Noob. Noob being the default survivalist, outcasted as the worst survivor in the game, too many, make it make sense. Anyways, Noob has practically no weaknesses, he isn't a bad character, and it just depends on whether the user has an issue with their skill or they don't. This video will clear up misconceptions people may have about Noob, and why people using him may think he's a bad character, and why he's actually the most broken survivor in the game as of right now, and he needs another rework or nerf ASAP. Heading into the video, I'm gonna assume there is at minimum a slight amount of teamwork going on in each game you play, and regarding the fact that your team could just be completely useless, Noob in these situations is by far the best and most consistent survivor in the game. And having a great Noob player in your lobby can make it practically impossible for a Jason, Cool Kid, or Noli to win the game, and downright stupid for a good 1x1x1 or John Doe, as those are the most map dependent and luck based killers, and have a chance against Noob. Noob, as of right now, has the absolute highest skill ceiling in Forsaken. Not skill cap, because Guest 1337 has the highest skill cap, as if you can get to a point where you're reacting to Cool Kid and Jason's M1s, then Guest would be absolutely dogshit broken, right? But as of right now, Noob is the hardest character to play in Forsaken, and it's not even close. Bloxy Cola, a simple ability in hindsight, but do not let the simplicity of this ability fool you at all. This single ability, Bloxy Cola, is the most disgustingly overpowered and most complicated ability in the entire game. This ability is so hard to use efficiently compared to all the other abilities that it becomes downright stupid to master. If you do not believe me, let me cover everything you need to know to become good at utilizing this ability to its highest potential possible. Let's assume it's last man standing, and since Jason has the simplest kit in the game to play against, we're gonna assume you're playing against the Jason when talking about the usage of Noob's ability Cola. Take into consideration, Jason is currently the fastest killer in the game, tied with Cool Kid when I talk about playing Noob against them. I won't be explaining how to play Noob against other killers or on certain maps, as that becomes self-explanatory. I'll only be showing you what you have to do to improve. Let me talk about Noob's quote-unquote weaknesses, or so they say. Noob has no abilities to efficiently escape and survive a chase when the killer has completely caught up to Noob. You could pop Slate Skin mid-chase, but that is just accepting your fate before it actually happens. Never pop Slate Skin mid-chase. You should save it for when there's 7 seconds left on the clock, because the wind-up takes 1.2 seconds or so, and Slate Skin lasts 6 seconds, and you should never get into a situation where you are able to pop your Bloxy Cola right next to the killer, as it should be on cooldown when they're able to fully catch up to you, or you're playing Noob wrong. So if Noob is completely useless and diddy cooked when the killer manages to catch up to him, then what can you do to get out of a desperate situation where the killer is right next to you with the stamina advantage? There's nothing you can do. I hate to break it to you. If the killer has caught up to you, Noob is a walking vessel to completely abuse with your M1s. No way for them to stun and gain distance. If the killer catches up to you when you're playing Noob, your fate is practically sealed and the chase is over. Do not fear. In this video, I'll cover how to use the best ability by far, way ahead of its contenders, Block and Sacrificial Dagger. Now that I've talked about a couple common misconceptions, I'll explain to you what you need to know to improve at using Bloxy Cola to the best of its ability and what not to do when playing Noob. If you don't know how to play Noob, here's the obvious. Noob is a generator connoisseur. If a killer targets the Noob, the killer should automatically lose. If it's any killer except for 1x1x1x1, the gambling machine, your team should be able to defend you for minutes on end, as Noob is the best survivalist in the game as of right now. If the killer doesn't go for you, then as Noob you should do all 5 generators, then flee to the best camping spot on the map. You can try to distract the killer, body block with slate skin, but most of the time, once all of the generators are completed, you are completely useless as Noob until last man standing. Some other tips: the ability Bloxy negates all the slowness effects. If you're forced to step in a digital footprint completely trapped by John Doe, you can pop a Bloxy and you have a slight chance of survival. If you get hit by a corrupt nature, it might be worth using depending on the killer's stamina and distance from you and what abilities they've used. Do not pop your Bloxy Cola at the start of a chase. This is one of the biggest mistakes even good players make when playing Noob. You have to preserve your Bloxy as a means of escape when the killer has almost caught up to you and is about to run out of stamina, reaching around 10 studs away from your position. This will usually happen at around 2 stamina rotations, 3 if you're really good. Unless you are cornered in a bad area from doing a generator in a bad position, and at a stamina disadvantage prior to the chase beginning somehow, it becomes situational. Stamina conservation. Pretty easy to understand when explained, but extremely hard to master. Stamina conservation is where you conserve your stamina, keeping a distance under 100 studs between you and the killer for as long as possible. The reason you would want to maintain this 100 stud pathing, of course, is to avoid the killer catching up to you. As you play more, you'll soon get better at visualizing the map and visualizing when the killer is 100 studs away in the fastest path to you. If you can keep this distance, how long until the killer catches up to you? You may ponder. This is where things get complicated. Stamina rotations. This is what I like to call it when a killer hits less than 5 stamina and takes the time to regen back to 110 stamina. Keep in mind that the killer does not have to let their stamina hit under 5 before they start regenerating it to 110, making their stamina unpredictable. So, you should be using the timer for whenever the chase starts as a reference to figure out how close the killer will be to you once they have fully used all of their stamina to catch up to your position. Jason has a sprint speed of 28, and Noob has a sprint speed of 26. This means if you're playing against a Jason who traverses just as well as you do, you'll lose 2 studs of distance for every second they spend sprinting, plus the extra 9 stamina they get to use to get to 1. 1 stamina rotation for the killer takes 11.57 seconds. The time it takes to use 109 stamina, plus 5 seconds, coming out at 16.57 seconds. For a survivor, however, 1 stamina rotation takes 10 seconds to use all their stamina and 5 seconds to regain. A 15-second stamina rotation. Noob's sprint speed is 26, and Jason's, the fastest in the game, is 28. tied with Cool Kid. Noob's walk speed is 12, 3 studs per second faster than Jason's walk speed of 9. This makes the overall speed per second from one stamina rotation 320 studs every 15 seconds for a survivor, as opposed to Jason's 367 studs per 16.5 seconds. Dividing 320 by 15 and 367 by 16.57, we come out at an average speed of Noob's and Jason's per stamina rotation being 22.14 studs per second, as opposed to 21.33 studs per second for a survivor. This means if both players path perfectly within the 100 stud distance when the chase starts, it will take the Jason over 100 seconds to catch up to the player if they perfectly path. Now, traversal, that would be the case if the Noob and Jason ran in a straight line infinitely. Sadly, that doesn't happen, or that's a good thing that doesn't happen actually. But to my knowledge, the widest map is probably reworked Planet Voss at around 300 to 400 studs wide from the bottom right corner to the top left. This could be completely wrong, but you get where I'm going. Traversing efficiently is by far one of the most crucial parts of playing Noob or any character. Now, places to camp. The best island or structure to camp in the game is probably the top right of the looping structure with the killer walls facing the red flag on U-Wall. People think that it's the ramp on the red side of U-Wall because it has that little wall on the other side, but it's horrible because there's this one stud that the killer can flick them off to get onto that ramp. You don't want to camp on that ramp. That's a mistake. Other good places are like the L-shaped structure or drop down at the front left or the side of Planet Voss. The drop down structure with the red stairs leading upwards at the top right of glass houses, one of my favorite ones. Or the drop down point, the corner of the castle on Brandon's Works, or whatever it's called. On those maps, no matter how good the killer is at Jason, the LMS is survivor-sided if played correctly. Noob is extremely map-dependent, more map-dependent than John Doe, and the fact that a survivor-sided LMS other than Guest with a Bloxy Cola against Noli is possible after the extreme nerfs to Noob is actually stupid. Make sure you're running tightly around objects to traverse efficiently as well. Alright, popping your Bloxy Cola. I'm not going to explain anything else. This is the most stupidly broken ability in Forsaken by far. Never pop your pick-upable Bloxy Cola at the start of an LMS as opposed to the ability one. As the ability Bloxy, your means of escape gets put on cooldown. Popping the ability Bloxy at the start of a chase is absolutely stupid, as after 10 seconds, the killer can just reset the chase from the 100 stud distance, and you're going to end up somewhere worse than where you're camping. Unless you start out from a bad position, traverse to the best starting point on that map, then you're already screwed, as you've lost your distance advantage, and the killer can likely force you to waste stamina in most situations. Usually, when I start out in a good position, I can force a 70-60 stud advantage at minimum, letting me pop my Bloxy after 2 stamina rotations, as the killer cannot catch up to my position utilizing all of their stamina. Since Noob's stamina rotation is 1.17 seconds faster than Jason's, 2 stamina rotations, the Jason will be able to sprint for an extra around 2 seconds to catch up to your location when you pop the Bloxy Cola. Due to this, when you use the Bloxy Cola, you have to account for the distance you currently have between you and the killer, the abilities they've used, and visualizing the stamina that they have. It's best to use Bloxy Cola in a blind spot. If you can reach one efficiently after the second stamina rotation, that's amazing, because you should try to pop it when the killer has his abilities on cooldown and does not have line of sight of you. if they have enough stamina to reach your position. If you successfully pop the ability Bloxy Cola mid-chase, it doesn't matter if the killer lands an M1, but does if they land a punishing move. Because if they land an M1, behead, whatever, you gain extra speed, including the speed 1, and the killer is completely done for. And if you're popping the ability Bloxy Cola successfully, buys yourself at minimum, no matter where you are on the map, as long as you pop it at low stamina, an extra 25 seconds if you maintain the stamina advantage from when the killer catches up to your position. To conclude, Noob is not just a brainless, easy character with no means to defend himself, a useless detriment to the team, instead one of the most stupid advantages if you have a good Noob player. Having a good Noob on your team can make the game downright unfair for the killer, completely ruining their chances of winning, and creating the possibility of them entering a survivor-sided last man standing, not even accounting for the fact that they can react to the timer with Ghost Burger and completely lose the Noob. I hope this video reaches someone who dreams to be a sweaty-ass Noob main in the near future and helps them to know how to improve. Focus on stamina conservation, traversal, and visualizing that 100 stud distance as well as possible, and remember not to pop your ability cola at the start of a chase.